It's time to call our shots. On today's episode, we have our AGA Awards. We then recap all of the crazy college football bowl games and give our college football playoff analysis. We then offer our national championship predictions. We got Alabama, Ohio State, two juggernauts. Should be a great matchup. We then kick it over to some NFL coverage where we discuss the Adam Gase and Anthony Lynn firing. And then we give our game-by-game playoff predictions. And then we crown our Super Bowl champions. So stay tuned. We have an action-packed show for you. Zach and I took a little bit of time off for the holidays, but we're now going to be back to our regular posting schedule. So stay tuned. We have the NHL season about to start. We'll be covering that in detail. And of course, we'll keep you updated with playoff football coverage. If you would like to support our show and see it grow, our link is patreon.com/callingmyshots. And if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, our handle is @CallerShots. Roll the intro.
Making their way to the ring, the reigning, defending podcast champs, calling my shots. There's only one way you can take this, and it's in that ring. Who wants to go toe-to-toe with the champs? This is Calling My Shots.
Calling My Shots is back, but I am ready to come out with some hot takes. We're refreshed, we're ready to go, and it was a crazy time to be a football fan. Obviously, it's also kind of sad that the football season is almost over. Zach, how's it going? What'd you think about bowl week? And did you have a good holiday?
It was good. I ate way too much food, played a little bit of golf, and watched some football and watched some pros and NCAA. So it's good. How was yours?
It was good. I also tried to play golf, but I hadn't played in like a couple of months, so did not go too well. The front nine was a little bit rough, but played a little bit better on the back. Still, I was shanking a lot of balls, but it was good. It was good to relax a little bit.
Nice. Every time I go home, it's one of a kind of a reclamation project with my old man getting his golf swing into peak. And he's a good player. He's a 2 or 3 handicap, but he always needs just a little bit of tweak. So I'm always happy to go down there and help him. So
nice. The Steelers also clinched the AFC North. Pretty pumped about that. And Clemson lost to Ohio State, which makes me happy as a Gamecocks fan. So good sports week. We've seen a lot of football, but it is crazy. We're at the tail end of it here.
That's right. It's crazy. We were begging, and now it's just in the blink of an eye, it's gone. And, it's wild. But we got hockey coming up here in about a week and a half. So excited for that.
Yep. Ready. It's looking like another year where the Penguins win the Stanley Cup. So pretty excited about it.
That'll go about as well as your Notre Dame beating Clemson pick will go.
Hey, how about my Ohio State beating Clemson pick?
Yeah. We'll get into that.
We're going to transition and start doing some more hockey coverage because when football season ends, we're going to have to transition a little bit. But we'll definitely catch you guys all up. We'll talk about these new division realignments, which are pretty crazy. And then we have the Seattle Kraken coming to town. So
That's right. I saw a funny tweet today. A gentleman posted, so Detroit, the Red Wings are listed as plus 2,500 odds to win the Central Division. And beneath that, he said, for those unfamiliar with how this works, if you bet $20 on the Red Wings to win the Central, you'll lose $20. So I thought that was hilarious.
Yep. The Red Wings, they were a little bit better last year, but they're still rebuilding. No doubt about it.
They're rebuilding.
So let's kick it off with your favorite segment and our favorite segment. We have our weekly Adam Gase Award, otherwise known as the AGA. Zach, who do you have the privilege of nominating this week for worst coaching blunder?
Well, I went back and forth on this, and I'm going to go with William Sweeney, or as most folks call him, Dabo. So everybody knows I'm high on the Dabo bandwagon. I believe he's the second best coach in college football behind Nick Saban. Always fields really good teams in the ACC, but I feel like he made a terrible decision this year. So he ranks Ohio State 11th in the coaches poll, for those of you who don't know. And then he proceeds to get drummed by Ohio State in the semi-playoff game and the semifinal game, 49-28. And, I think it's one thing to be using the media as a tool to boost your players up, like, oh, they don't respect us, they don't think we can play. But when you're adding fuel to other teams' motivation, I think that's dangerous territory. And I really think that Ryan Day told his players, hey, look, they don't respect us at all. Let's go out and show these SOBs that we are for real. And they did it. Yeah, Dabo, I'm a big fan, but man, that was a boneheaded decision to me. I think he's a well-deserved candidate this week. What you got?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's funny because, Clemson or Dabo is usually known for being like the motivator, talking about how Clemson's underrated and, no one respects us. But then he literally does it to himself and doesn't respect Ohio State, puts him at 11, and that came back and bit him hard. And I honestly thought it was pretty funny. I tried to tell people Ohio State was going to beat Clemson, but that's a whole different discussion. For my AGA award, I have none other than Doug Peterson. If you watched the NFL last week, you know that this has to be on the list. So he pulled Jalen Hurts for Nate Sudfeld, who is their third-string quarterback drafted in the 6th round, and he's been in the league for 4 years. Early in the fourth quarter, and they were down by only 3 points. They end up losing the game 20-14. You had Jalen Hurts on the sideline mouthing, "It's not right." So overall, it was a terrible look for the franchise. You had players wanting to fight Peterson on the sidelines. For a guy that won the Super Bowl, I don't know what happened. He literally beat the Patriots, wins the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, and now this is what we're seeing out of him. Crazy. It just shows that he had absolutely no faith in his quarterback. We know Hurts have been playing well, deserved the reps. Very questionable decision here.
These teams that tank, there's a taboo rule that, hey, we know you're not going to win, but you've got to at least make it look good. They're down 3 points. And look, let's be real here. If they would have picked Jalen Hurts this year and would have picked Sudfeld last year and they were still trying to figure out what they had, that'd be one thing. But Hurts has played very well since he came in there for Wentz. And Sudfeld, man, he's been in the league 4 years. It's not like he has blown the lid off. I think that for Peterson to give those valuable reps away from Hurts really hurts them. I know I did see today where they are going to pick 6th, and if they would have won, they would have picked 9th. Also, extra motivation, the Giants would have actually won the division if they would have beaten Washington the other day. I just don't understand it. I think that on paper, it makes sense, but man, quarterbacks are, they could be argued that they're like pitchers and goalies in hockey, man. Their psyche is very fragile. If you yank somebody, man, it doesn't always work. Sometimes you might motivate them, but other times you might hurt their confidence. And Jalen Hurts looked distraught. This may come back to bite Doug Peterson.
Absolutely. Well, and then his justification for it was that he wanted to get Sudfeld some playing time, but you've seen the guy in practice every single day. I mean, unless you don't know how to evaluate your own talent, which could be the case, you don't make a move like this.
That's right.
The one thing I question is whether or not this came from the top down. Don't know if we'll ever know about that, but still, he easily deserves the AGA this week, and it was a terrible look. I'm sure Eagles fans are pissed off.
That's right. You just don't insult our intelligence and tell us that, I was really trying to win. That, to me, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to win. No chance.
Exactly.
So let's kick it over to some college football coverage. We're going to go over the latest coaching carousels. There's only a couple of them, but then we're going to give our bowl game synopsis and then kind of recap the college football playoffs. And then we'll end our college football segment with our national championship predictions. So starting out with some breaking news, we have Auburn hiring former Boise State head coach Bryan Harsin in what was a very under-the-radar move that no one saw coming. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. I figured that they would pull the trigger on someone like maybe Hugh Freeze, some of the other hot names thrown out there. I know Billy Napier turned down the job, but this still came as a shock to me. I am interested to see how it plays out. The more I looked into Harsin and his resume, the more I think that it has a potential for working, but I still feel like with Auburn's pull, and it being a top 10 job in the country, they might have been able to do a little bit better. What are your thoughts, Zach?
I thought this came out of left field too, but now looking at it, I not so much. I think they went back. So he obviously did a good job at Boise State, but Bryan Harsin was also the coach after Hugh Freeze at Arkansas State. And who was the coach before Hugh Freeze? It was Gus Malzahn. So Arkansas State's kind of becoming this well for players to either transfer to or, SEC coaches like to pick from there. But, he's had some success. I think he built off of what Chris Peterson built at Boise State. He's 76-24 in his career record. So, the guy knows what he's doing. We'll see how this plays out. Honestly, looking at this from the surface level, I just don't feel like he is that big of an upgrade from Gus Malzahn, but he may prove me wrong. I do know that Harsin was trying to poach some other SEC coaches, Ole Miss offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby and a couple other guys. He was trying to get them to come in, but it looks like he's been unsuccessful. And he's also told Kevin Steele that he will not be returning as the defensive coordinator.
Wow.
This will be interesting.
Yeah, our listeners know from our time talking about when Gus Malzahn was fired how much I was against that move. So Harsin better come out and prove everyone wrong, because if not, it's going to be a very bad look for Auburn. I'm still under the impression that Malzahn didn't deserve to be fired. And if this is a total bust, I'm going to question the boosters. I'm going to question the athletic director. I feel like this is a gamble of a hire.
I agree. And I'm not saying that Gus had not worn out his welcome at Auburn. He's had some success, but he's also lost some games that he should not have lost. But there's just not a whole lot of big-time coaches out in the coaches carousel this year. I didn't think there was, and I think Harsin has a chance to do well there, but I just still kind of question this hire. We'll see if they can prove us wrong.
Yeah. So other breaking news, Texas, the Longhorns, fired Tom Herman and then end up hiring Alabama offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian. This one actually caught me off guard because, you had all the Urban Meyer rumors originally, and then you had the athletic director for Texas saying that they stand by Herman. But then all of a sudden, Texas wins a bowl game, and then Herman loses his job. I'm not surprised that it happened, but I really am questioning the Steve Sarkisian hire because he hasn't really had a lot of success as a head coach. I know he went 9-4 one year with the fake USC, but he's still been a very mediocre head coach. So to pull the trigger on Herman and instantly hire Sarkisian without doing more of a thorough coaching search, I'm a little bit skeptical about it. What about you, Zach?
Yeah, really, this caught me off guard. So sitting there Saturday, they announced it on ESPN. I'm getting ready to watch the Ole Miss game. It says Tom Herman has been relieved of his coaching duties. And as you said, Chris De La Conte, the Texas athletic director, said he was our coach a few weeks ago. The rumor started swirling. It's Sarkisian, it's so-and-so. David Pollack actually put out a tweet that said he was hearing sources that Sarkisian actually turned him down. But obviously that turned out to be false.
Yeah, if he turned down the Texas job, he got some balls, that's for sure.
I think this is playing off the part that Sarkisian is supposed to be a really good offensive genius and a part of the fact that he is now a part of the Nick Saban coaching reclamation project program. This is a big jump for me because he obviously had substance issues at USC and was let go. The guy has some problems with the sauce. They say he's doing a lot better now, which is great, but we'll see. This is a big gamble. Herman was at Texas. He went 32 wins in 4 years, including won all 4 bowl games. 8 wins just ain't enough, I guess, for the University of Texas. So we'll see. Sarkisian's got to get in there and win quickly.
Yep. Well, I think you brought up a good point about Sarkisian supposedly being an offensive genius. You obviously have Lincoln Riley with Oklahoma, who always has an outstanding offense. So maybe this is their counter to that. But
sure,
I do think that moving on from Tom Herman is the right move. I just don't know that Steve Sarkisian is much of an upgrade over him. And it seems like for a university that has its own sports network, the only one in the country, they have the Longhorn Network and a group of prestigious alumni, one of the best fan bases and alumni networks in the entire country, that they should be able to conduct a more thorough coaching search and get a bigger name. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. Looking at it on paper, looking at tradition, fan base, money, all that, conference, to me, it is hard to argue that Texas is not the number one job in the country. And I know that will piss off a lot of people in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and maybe Columbus, Ohio. But I'm just telling you, Texas has all the money in the world. They've got facilities. They've got famous alumni. They got everything. And it's just crazy to me that they're losing kind of that aura or that power, because you would think with all that in your corner, you could literally go, I want you. Come on. But they can't do that. And I think that they have the mindset that they still should be dominating college football, but we'll see. I think that Sarkisian has a chance to do some good things, but like I said, he's going to have to win quickly. And I also wanted to bring up this tidbit. Somebody put out a brilliant idea of who Nick Saban needs to hire for his replacement at Alabama, his offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn.
It would be a great move overall.
Oh, my God. If
Alabama got Malzahn as their offensive coordinator, they wouldn't lose a single game.
They burned the place down. I understand that, but what if they lost a game?
Yeah, but that would be a tremendous move if they could get Malzahn as their offensive coordinator. That'd be scary for college football. I would be concerned. I don't think anyone could even hang with Alabama at that point.
I think Gus's offensive genius has really taken it. We talked about this last time. Since you can substitute now, his offenses have not been as glamorous as once were. But, he's still a good coach. But, Jesus, Dalton, I could go there and win a national championship with those players. You got two people fighting for the Heisman tonight.
That's fair. Can't argue with it. So let's quickly go over some of these bowl games. I just want to start out by saying that the ACC went 0-6, and we had 2 ACC teams in the college football playoffs. Think about that, Zach. I've been saying it for a long time. The ACC is a very overrated conference. Clemson gets gifted a spot to the playoff every single year because they don't play anyone. Obviously, I don't want to beat the drum too much about this, but it's a bad look when the ACC goes 0-6 and Clemson and Notre Dame both get obliterated.
It is. So their prime jewel, Clemson, gets beat. That's one thing. I'll say nobody really expected Notre Dame to make a lot of noise. But this Oklahoma State-Miami game that Oklahoma State pulled out, that was a really good game. Miami had a chance to win that. King actually got hurt, and I believe he's going to have ACL surgery, so we'll see about that. They had a layup with NC State and Kentucky, I believe. Kentucky's not that great. And they let Kentucky beat them. And that Texas-North Carolina game was a good game, too. So the ACC had some good games, but, boy, they just couldn't pull anything out, could they?
Nope. And then the SEC, it was funny because I was sitting there on Twitter. Auburn lost. You had all these SEC haters tweeting out, oh, here we go again with the SEC, getting blown out in bowl games because you had Florida getting crushed, obviously, and then you had Auburn. But SEC ends up going 6-2, and then you didn't really hear a lot more of those takes after that. But it was just funny how fast people were to come out and say, oh, the SEC is overrated. People, all the SEC haters just chirping them. And then the SEC ends up winning 6 games. So
no doubt, Georgia had to score 14 in the fourth quarter to come back and beat Cincinnati, but they took down the perfect Bearcats. You're right, Alabama just dispatched Notre Dame. We just kind of touched on Kentucky beating NC State, North Carolina losing to Texas A&M as well. But I will stand here and just tell you, I think that the pride of the SEC this bowl season so far, until Alabama wins next week, is that Ole Miss, a 4-5 Ole Miss team, beat the number 11 team in the country, who was looking better and better for their one loss to Ohio State, especially after Ohio State dispatched Clemson like they did. So made the SEC look pretty good.
Yeah, there's some bias in that statement, but I completely agree with you. Ole Miss did pull it out and definitely elevated the SEC overall. It was a great win for their program. They're definitely going the right direction. I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss starts the season ranked. I think they should. I think they should be somewhere around the 23 to 25 range.
Well, I know that a lot of Indiana fans are going to say that Michael Penix Jr. was out, and I understand that. And also Tuttle separated his shoulder during that game. But I'm just going to tell you, Ole Miss's first team All-American, Elijah Moore, was sitting out, and they had a couple other COVID issues. Matt Corral was third in the country in QBR this year, only behind Mac Jones and Justin Fields.
Even with his 2 15 interception games?
Yes. So if you go, so he threw 14 or 15 interceptions this year, and 11 of them were in 2 games. He threw 2 in the Auburn game and 1 in the Florida game. Other than that, Arkansas and LSU, that was it. Kids got game. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Obviously, bias is here, but if Ole Miss has an average SEC defense, they win a lot more games than they did. They very well could have won every game. Florida and Alabama got away from it at the end, but they were both tied with about 5 minutes to go. We'll see. I'm excited for the future. Kiffin, I hated Kiffin 5 years ago, but the world needs villains, Dalton.
Yeah.
The world needs villains.
But you guys are known for hiring villains. You got Kiffin, you got Hugh Freeze. It just kind of runs in the nature of the program.
How is Hugh Freeze I mean, obviously,
With his scandals,
I understand that, but at the time, Brother Hugh was just a Bible-loving human.
until that got exposed. But
Sure, but he wasn't a villain at the time of hiring him.
that's
Don't
fair.
talk to me.
Aren't you happy we're giving Ole Miss some love on this podcast for the first year? You should be thrilled about that.
Absolutely.
I'm praising the Rebels. You guys beat Indiana. I didn't see that coming. That was a great win.
I didn't see it coming either.
You're saying you guys are going to be ranked going into next year.
What I will not tolerate is I will hear none of this Shane train bullshit. There is only one train in the SEC, and it is the Lane train. You're going to have to find your own nickname. You can't hop on board us.
Like I said, I'm still 50-50 on the Shane hire. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon like everyone else until I see results. It's still a little bit of an unproven hire. He is making some good moves in terms of staffing and different coordinators that he's bringing on.
Yeah.
And kind of overhauling the program, which needed to happen. So we'll see.
For sure. I'm just saying, dude, Alabama already ripped us off with their Rammer Jammer Yellow Hammer chant. They took that after the Hottie Toddy, so that's fine. Y'all can't keep stealing from us forever.
Fair enough. So let's talk about Georgia scraping out a victory over Cincinnati. I know we briefly touched on this, but they won 24-21, but their field goal kicker had to make a career long to win the game. Georgia looked terrible the first half. I really thought they had no chance of coming back. Felt like Cincinnati was going to kind of run away with it, but they end up scraping it out. For a 5-star quarterback, I'm still not sold on JT Daniels. There's a reason why he didn't really get much playing time at USC. I still think Georgia needs to figure out their quarterback situation, but overall, George Pickens looks like a first-round draft pick as a wide receiver, and they pulled it out, but I will give some respect to Cincinnati. They played a great game. Obviously, this was their national championship, but I think that they proved that they can contend with Power 5 conferences. And honestly, I might say, I've been trying to say this for a couple of years now, Zach, I think the AAC is as good as the ACC and Pac-12. I think it should be considered Power 6 now.
Yeah.
If you look at overall depth of the conference, they have some good teams, and they have teams every year that are ranked.
That may be true. However, they don't generate money like the Pac-12 and the ACCs do. I understand what you're saying. The talent
I'm just saying talent-wise.
I got you. But it's a money thing. But you're right. I think that Cincinnati was very motivated to play. And like you said, Daniels did not look very good at all in the first half. I think that Georgia's pure talent advantage is the only thing that kept them in this game. And like I said, they scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win this game. But I think Cincinnati had a pretty darn good showing this year. I think that, like you said, they proved that they could play with the big boys on the big stage.
Yeah. So then we have Oklahoma clobbering Florida 55-20. On a podcast that we didn't release, we kind of talked about this, and Zach and I both agreed that Oklahoma was going to win this game. Florida would come out unmotivated, which we saw. The big thing was Dan Mullen putting Kyle Trask in the situation that he did. I didn't think was right because it definitely hurt his draft capital, or has the potential to. Pulling, obviously, Tony and Kyle Pitts. So he had no one to throw to, and his timing was off with all the receivers. But he definitely didn't play well either. You got to put some blame on his shoulders as well. But Oklahoma clobbered Florida. That was a bad look for Florida.
They did, and I'll just be honest with you. Dan Mullen almost made my AGA award this week because he came out and said that as far as he was concerned, the last game that his team played was that SEC championship game, and that he thought his scout team played very well in this game. So he obviously is not taking this loss very well. But, Oklahoma ran for 435 yards. They moved the ball at will. Florida forced 2 turnovers, and still Oklahoma scored 55 on them. Man, Rattler looks good. If I'm not the kind of guy to tell you I told you so, but Spencer Rattler's the real deal.
They always have a good quarterback. I can't deny it any longer. I jumped on the Rattler train with you. It took me a little bit to get on board, but the guy's young, clearly has talent.
He's a freshman, man. Everybody was hooping and hollering about Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray this. He is an 18, now he's 19-year-old freshman.
Oklahoma's going to be dangerous, no doubt about it. So then we have Texas A&M beating North Carolina in the Orange Bowl, 41-27. This was a great game overall. It was a big win for Texas A&M. North Carolina, I felt like was a pretty good team overall, but the question is, did Texas A&M deserve to get in over Notre Dame?
This was a really good game. Texas A&M won by 14, but they scored a last-minute touchdown. It was close the entire game. I think they busted off a big run there. That was like a 75-yard touchdown by Texas A&M to put it away, but again, I don't think so. I think Texas A&M had a fantastic season, but going back to the game against Alabama, they lost by 28. If it's a closer game, sure, they have a lot better argument, but looking at it on paper, Notre Dame played a closer game to Alabama than Texas A&M did, so technically they were right.
They covered the point spread.
Yeah. What do you think?
It's hard to argue against it, just with the options that were out there, and Texas A&M playing Alabama the way that they did, it definitely bit them. I completely agree with you. It is cool to see Mac Brown being back. He has North Carolina going in the right direction, that's for sure.
No doubt. They got a really good recruit class coming in top there in 15th or 16th. Yeah.
I think they're top 10.
Are they?
Yeah, I think they got to the top 10. I know South Carolina's number 100. It'll be a brutal year next year.
Well, they've moved up because they were 109 about early signing day, so things were getting brighter in Columbia.
Yeah, it's going to be a brutal year in Columbia, no doubt about it.
Relax. New coaching regimes always have to build their own building blocks in recruiting, so it's going to be bad before it gets good. Just have patience, Columbia.
Yeah, that's true. So, in the Duke Mayo Bowl, we have Wisconsin beating Wake Forest 42-28. It was a cool win for Wisconsin. The Mayo Bowl is definitely unique and very smart move by Duke to sponsor this bowl game. I saw that their website traffic went up 250% after this, and I was reading an article. The CEO of Duke Mayonnaise was asked why they would sponsor a bowl like this, and he said, because no one really thinks about mayonnaise. And what a better stage to do it. And clearly they got results out of it with their website traffic increasing 250%. And then Google search results asking where you can get Duke mayonnaise was also up like 200%. So
that is pure marketing.
Yep. The winner of this bowl game to me was Duke mayonnaise.
The only thing I'll say that I disliked about this game was when they poured the water cooler all over the coach at the end. Dalton, in the Cheez-It game, we get poured with Cheez-Its. Why not in the mayonnaise game? Let's pour some mayonnaise on somebody.
They should have did it. So next game, I know we talked about this briefly earlier, but Zach's Ole Miss Rebels upset Indiana in the Outback Bowl, 26-20. I will say the SEC owns the Outback Bowl. You can also thank South Carolina for beating Michigan twice. But yeah, this was a tremendous win by Ole Miss. I can't remember what the spread was, but I know you guys were pretty big underdogs. So
it jumped up pretty high. I think at the end it was around 8.5 or 9.5, trending towards Indiana, and it should have been. Indiana was, robbed of playing in the Big Ten championship game. The day before the game, they actually ripped off the Big Ten patches on their uniforms, didn't represent them at all. There was some bad blood there, and the general feeling was that they were going to come out and show everybody that they should have been in at least the Big Ten championship game. And I'll be honest with you, I did not think Ole Miss was going to win this game. Ole Miss's defense this year was ranked 127th overall, which is damn near bottom of the NCAAs. I understand that they play in the SEC, which have a lot of good offenses, but they were atrocious, and they really showed up. Man, they kept Indiana contained, only gave up 3 points in the first half. They finally got tired, in the fourth quarter, but man, it was a really good game. I was very proud of my team, love them. But I think that Tom Allen in Indiana really wanted to end the season on a better note than that. Losing to a 4-5 SEC team does not really help you when you've had the best season you've had in 30 years.
But does that just go to show you how good the SEC is? I know there was a heinous amount of SEC haters on Twitter trying to chirp the conference when Auburn and Florida lost, but it's a superior football conference. It really is.
Again, obviously very biased, but I think Ole Miss could have played in another conference and won it in 7 or 8 games. So, that's just me. But speaking of teams in Mississippi, Dalton, Mississippi State and Tulsa had a little game and had a little altercation at the end. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Gosh.
That was pretty crazy. Not really surprised coming from a Mike Leach team. He can be a little bit of a hothead. So I think his team just they exemplify his persona and they play vicariously through him.
If you guys have not seen this video, please stop what you're doing right now and look it up. Mike Leach is taking pictures in the stands with fans at the end. and there's a security guard there, and he's taking a picture with him. And then they zoom out the camera, and on the opposite sideline, all hell is breaking loose. That's when the brawl is going on. It is the funniest thing you'll see all week. And then Leach's response at the end was, it's football. It's physical. Don't do it again is what I'd tell him.
Leach is a legend. I really hope that he continues to have success at Mississippi State. It takes a little while for his offense, the air raid offense, to take off, but I think he's going to be okay. I think Mississippi will go in the right direction.
It's a very niche job at Mississippi State. You know, Mullen did really well there, hyping up the fan base against Ole Miss. You know, there's not 4 and 5 stars coming out of Mississippi every year, but there's a lot of really good 3 stars and sometimes 4 stars creep in there. Mississippi State has had top tier SEC defense over the last 5-6 years. So Leach gets some offensive players in there, man. They'll be good.
Yeah, they'll be back. No doubt about it. So in the Rose Bowl, we're going to break down the college football playoffs. We have Alabama dominating Notre Dame 31-14. I did say on a podcast that we failed to release that Notre Dame would cover the point spread, but it really doesn't matter because this was a blowout. Notre Dame really never had a chance in this game. Devontae Smith should win the Heisman. I think his touchdown record is ridiculous. The guy seems almost uncoverable, which is crazy. If you look at first-round draft picks for wide receivers, like at one point, Alabama had Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and Jerry Jeudy all on the same team. That is absolutely ridiculous. They have way too much talent. Mac Jones looks like the real deal as well. They're a force to be reckoned with, and this is one of the better teams they've had in a while, which is saying a lot.
I agree. I'm still not super sold on Mac Jones at the next level. He's obviously had a tremendous career and has a fair argument for the Heisman. You know,
A.J. McCarron, that's the question.
A.J. McCarron made a fine career out of saying, Hut, here you go, Trent Richardson. A.J. McCarron is still a backup in the NFL, so what the hell do I know? I'll say this. Every time it seems like Nick Saban gets in these first-round playoff games, they don't – man, he was putting up points on everybody all year. Now, all of a sudden, they were not throwing the ball down the field. They were running like these swing passes and crazy other stuff. It just felt like he was holding everything back. And they played so conservative, man. Especially, you put up 50 points on damn near every team you played this year, including Georgia and Florida. And you're going to tell me that Notre Dame is 18 points better on defense than Florida and Georgia? I don't believe that. I think that Saban was like, okay, guys, let's just go out there and get this done. We're going to save all the bells and whistles for the Ohio State game. Let's go. I mean, am I crazy in thinking that? Because it just seemed like that they did not beat them as bad as they could and should have.
Yeah, and I do think Notre Dame played a much better game than they did against Clemson in the ACC championship. And I've been advocating for Notre Dame being a good team this year with some big wins. So I do think Notre Dame, their defense especially, played well. But, you know, Nick Saban's also the best coach, arguably, in college football of all time. So I'm not really going to question his decisions and his play calling and the scheme that they had for the game. It clearly worked. They're on to the national championship, and maybe he just knows better.
I fully am not doubting him at all. But I will bet you damn near every penny that I've got that they will score more than 31 against Ohio State, regardless if they win or lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right with that, especially because Ohio State's secondary is very vulnerable.
Again, we were talking about this. Maybe Mac Jones is not up to Joe Burrow's level, but I think it's clear that Alabama's wide receiver talent is ahead of what LSU had last year. I still don't think –
And running back, Najee Harris might be as good as Derrick Henry, which is saying a lot.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think he's definitely better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I'm telling you, man, I
don't know. Justin Jefferson was pretty good, though. I mean, look at what he did to the Vikings.
But you just said Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
I mean, my God. I would still think that this Alabama offense this year has a fair argument to say that they are better than LSU's was last year.
We'll see how they do in the national championship. I'm still going to lean LSU just because of Joe Burrow.
I understand.
So let's talk about the Sugar Bowl. Clemson gets upset by Ohio State, 49-28. Dabo, you did it to yourself, ranking Ohio State at number 11. It was cool to see in Ohio State's locker room. They had the score of last year's playoff game posted, and then they worked out and looked at it every single day and used it for motivation. I really like Ryan Day as a coach. He's basically the polar opposite of Urban Meyer. Seems a lot classier and he clearly knows how to motivate his guys, just does it in his own way. Ohio State came out ready to play. They punched Clemson in the throat. They dominated the trenches. They took deep shots, and Justin Fields easily improved his draft capital. He was a warrior that game. He took so many hard shots, still got up. I mean, the guy could barely run on the bike, but he was still out there throwing 60-yard bombs to Olave. I was most impressed with how Fields played because I haven't seen a game like that out of him in a long time. And to do it against Clemson's so-called elite defense was crazy. I mean, they dropped 49 points. The game really didn't seem close, and I've been trying to tell people for a while, I think Trevor Lawrence is overrated. If you get pressure on him, he makes bad decisions. At the NFL, at the NFL, that's going to hurt him because what are teams going to do? They're going to send the house. They're going to blitz him. They're going to get pressure on him. And if you can't make good decisions when you're getting pressure, you're not going to last in the NFL. He's a great college quarterback, but I think that he's going to be overrated in the National Football League. I've been saying that for a while.
Yeah, Justin Fields threw 6 touchdowns. Obviously, you could make the fair argument and the correct argument that he outplayed Trevor Lawrence. But the reason Ohio State won this game was because of the rushing. Trey Sermon ran for 193 yards. Travis Etienne ran for 32. Clemson only rushed for 44 yards as a team. Ohio State rushed for 254 yards. That was it because Clemson couldn't stop the run. So you got to bring the safeties up. And what does that do? Oh, wait, no safeties? I can throw the ball deep. So Clemson just had no answer for anything. You give up 639 yards, man, you've had a rough game. For the second year in a row, I think that Clemson's linebacker got tossed on a questionable targeting call. I think it was right by the letter of the law. If you guys didn't see it, I still think it's a BS call. But I think
there should be flagrant and non-flagrant targeting.
By the letter,
they need to distinguish that rule a little bit better.
By the letter of the law, it was targeting. He led with the crown of the helmet, blah, blah, blah. But I just don't know what you're supposed to do when you go down for a hit and the other guy is coming down. But I digress. Ohio State was the better team. They were not going to be denied. They deserved to win that game. And again, we had talked about it, and I did not pick Ohio State to win this game, but I'll say it again. We knew the talent was there. They just hadn't proved it to me this year. They had not put together a complete performance for 60 minutes, and they finally did it, and they did it at the right time.
Trey Sermon's also a difference maker, and because people really haven't seen him that much besides in the Big Ten championship, the guy literally came out of nowhere, and he looks untouchable. I mean, he's a prolific runner. He definitely – Clemson had no answer for him. It was crazy. He just –
This team reminds me a lot of that 2014 team that beat Alabama with Ezekiel Elliott back there. Man, it could happen.
Yeah, and their pass rush is actually solid too. They don't have any big-name guys like Chase Young, but they have 3 or 4 guys that can get after it. I mean, they had constant pressure on Lawrence. But I do want to ask you, Zach, I don't think that Lawrence looked impressive at all or like the number 1 draft pick in this game at all. What do you think?
I mean, he still threw for 400 yards. He didn't have a bad game at all. He's obviously throwing every down because they're way behind. It's hard to say. I don't know if this directly tells me that he's not the number 1 pick anymore. I still think he is. I think he has the most upside of any quarterback in this coming out in this draft with Kyle Trask, Mac Jones.
Would the Jaguars take Fields over Lawrence based off that game? That's the question.
I don't think.
Did Fields do enough?
I don't think you can. Fields is tremendously talented, but Fields has had some bad games this year, multiple bad games. He played well during this right time. Trevor Lawrence has had some okay games, but he played really good from when he came back from COVID. And I just think Trevor Lawrence is the safer pick, and I think he's got more upside.
Yeah. That's fair. What does it say about Kirby Smart, though, deciding to go with Jake Fromm instead of Justin Fields?
It says exactly what I've tried to been tell you for the past 6 months. Kirby Smart's an idiot. He is brilliant at finding players, but he cannot or has not figured out how to just yet coach them up to an elite level. The guy recruits out of this world. Fantastic recruiter, but they just can't quite seem to put it all together to beat these big teams. And this was a swing and a miss. Justin Fields is phenomenal, and he just you're not good. We'll see. Trevor Lawrence is from Georgia, too.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, he didn't commit to Georgia, but he was right there in their backyard, and they let him get away.
I just think that Trevor Lawrence is one of the most worshipped college quarterbacks we've seen in a long time, and I just think he's a little bit overrated for what I've seen.
Well,
compared to how much media love the guy gets, it's ridiculous. I mean, they're crowning him as the next coming of Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, and I'm just not sold. I'm not convinced.
Is the perfect face for college football. I mean, he came in as a freshman and had a tremendous, obviously beat Alabama, but he's got that long hair. He's just a great face for college football. He's kind of like, who am I trying to think of here?
Sunshine from Remember the Titans.
Yeah. I was just kind of looking. I guess, I mean, Reggie Bush was a good-looking guy. He was a hell of a player at USC. He's a good Matt Liner. They're just, when you get those guys at these big schools, man, he's just the face. And I don't know why they get assigned to be the face of football, but you're right.
I still think Joe Burrow's better. I think he's going to be better in the NFL, too.
I have seen nothing that will sell me that Trevor Lawrence is going to dominate the next level. I know a lot of people say he's the best prospect they've ever seen. I still think that Sam Darnold, if he could ever have his confidence and get on a legitimate team, that could be a really good player. He impressed me more at USC than Lawrence really ever did at Clemson. We'll see.
So let's quickly give our national championship preview and predictions. We have, obviously, Ohio State trying to upset Alabama. So the line, I think, opened at 7.5 points. Seems about right, but Vegas is giving Ohio State some love after that big win, from what I can tell, which is kind of where they're putting the spread at. It's going to be an interesting matchup. If Justin Fields plays the way that he did against Clemson, I think Ohio State has a chance in this game.
For sure.
I think it's going to be an offensive shootout. There's going to be a lot of points scored overall. You have a great running back with Trey Sermon going off against one of the best running backs with Najee Harris. You have Olave, then you have Devontae Smith. I think Alabama has a little bit more wide receiver depth, but
more.
Yeah, they do. They do have more receiver depth, and I'm a little bit worried about Ohio State's secondary and whether or not they're actually going to be able to shut down Smith or any of their wide receivers. So this game, it's all going to go on the arm of Justin Fields and how he plays. I don't see any other way that Ohio State has a chance of even being competitive.
So it looks like Jalen Waddle's actually got a chance to come back and play. And, oh, by the way, he was a first-team All-American.
Yeah, that was pretty scary.
The over-under on this game is 75, which is incredible. So first things first, Ohio State's having some COVID issues. So the game is actually scheduled for the 11th on Monday, but they're actually trying to push it back to the 18th because, according to Big Ten rules, originally it was 21 days that players had to sit out. Obviously, we know for the playoff semifinals, the Big Ten actually loosened up on that rule and cut it down. Pretty much what this means is guys who got COVID after Christmas can't play for Ohio State, and they're trying to push it back to the 18th to make sure that they can. We'll see how this plays out. I know Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, has said that this is BS, that Ohio State needs to play, which obviously I don't think that's crazy for him to say. On a pure paper standpoint, I think that Ohio State has to play another full 60-minute game like they did against Clemson. I don't know that they can do that again. That was as good as they looked, as good as they could have looked. But, man, you're asking a lot to do that 2 times in a row. I understand this is a big game.
Here's what I'm worried about. I feel like that win over Clemson was their national championship. I don't know that they can muster up enough motivation to beat Alabama. I feel like they wanted to get revenge on Clemson. They had that marked down all season. That's what they were prepared for. That's what they were motivated for. It's just whether or not they can keep the same momentum going into the national championship and play a perfect game.
They have the roster to do it. Obviously, we compared them to the 2014 Buckeyes with Ezekiel Elliott. Justin Fields is the kind of quarterback that Alabama always has trouble with. The Nick Marshalls, with the Chad Kellys, with, Cam Newton, blah, 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 yada, yada. But, and Ohio State also has good defensive lines, which all those other teams had. But, man, I just don't think they can get up again. As crazy as it sounds, I just think it's asking so much for them to get motivated that much again. I'll say this. The only way I see Ohio State winning this game is they need to be +2 in the turnover margin. And Alabama just doesn't turn the ball over.
That's true. Mac Jones is a very accurate passer. They don't fumble the ball. They're coached well. I'm with you on this, Zach. I think that my pick here is going to be Alabama. I think it's going to be a close game, though. Justin Fields should show out again. It's going to be very high scoring, but I'll take Alabama to win in a close one.
I'd take that over on that 75. I'd take that over. I'd see Alabama winning this probably 51-45 or so.
So let's move into our NFL coverage. We're going to give you the latest breaking news, and then we're also going to give our playoff predictions. We're going to go round by round, AFC, NFC, and then crown our Super Bowl champions. It should be fun. I'm excited for it. The Steelers clinched the AFC North, almost beat Cleveland with their backups last week, but that's a whole different discussion. Let's first start out by talking about our guy who we have honored a segment after, Adam Gase, being fired by the New York Jets. What do you think, Zach? We all saw it coming. If the Jets didn't do it, I feel like their fan base would completely disown them. They might go bankrupt. So
you don't ever want a guy to lose his job. I understand that. But at the same time, man, he just looked like he was a fish out of water from his opening press conference. Remember him sitting at the table looking up like he had seen ghosts or whatever. The guy came from the Nick Saban coaching tree.
People are saying he's going to go back to Alabama as an offensive coordinator. I've seen that.
Very well could. So also, Bill O'Brien was spotted in Tuscaloosa yesterday as well, so keep an eye on that. I don't know what it is about him, but he just ain't ready to be a coach. He was obviously out of water. He needs to go. The Nick Saban Reclamation Project probably wouldn't be a bad thing for Adam Gase, honestly.
Yeah. Well, he ruined two quarterbacks, in my opinion. He ruined Ryan Tannehill when he was in Miami, and he's ruined Sam Darnold.
Gosh, I hope Sam Darnold gets out of there. I'm telling you, he's got so much talent. He's just got to get his confidence back, and it was just impossible under Adam Gase.
I'm not going to pin anything. I think Darnold should still be the starter. Look at how well Ryan Tannehill's playing now for Tennessee once he has a decent head coach. I'm not going to count Darnold out. I think it's all on coaching. I think it's all on Adam Gase.
It's confidence. And obviously Tannehill has more weapons now than he did, but Tannehill had Jarvis Landry and Jay Ajayi and some of those guys. Obviously not Derrick Henry, but still, until he got to Tennessee, that is. But, man, you've got to have confidence as a quarterback, but you've also got to have weapons, and you've also got to have a good system. And Frank Gore, legend, but, man, he's not going to tote the rock for 2,000 yards anymore.
Right. So, speaking of 2,000 yards, we have Derrick Henry becoming the 8th running back ever in history to run for over 2,000 yards. And what else is interesting is the Titans now have two 2,000-yard rushers. Zach, do you know who the other Titans running back was that got 2,000?
I would guess Chris Johnson.
Yeah, that's correct. CJ2K.
I was this close to saying Eddie George, but I retracted that. Yeah, the only thing I don't like about this, Dalton, is that I got no points for fantasy football league this week with Derrick Henry rushing for 240-plus yards. But
he gashed me whenever you played in the third place game. So
not even that bad. He got like 8 points.
I won one league. I won a Yahoo Pro League, but in my own league, I came in 4th. It was pretty painful.
The pedestal only goes up to 3, unfortunately, but you tried.
I put up 150 points the week before. I would have beat anyone else besides the guy that I faced, but that's how fantasy football goes. You can't win them.
No doubt.
So then we have Anthony Lynn getting canned by the Chargers. Not surprised by this one either. I know that they ended the season 7-9, but the thing with Anthony Lynn is he makes terrible coaching decisions mid-game, and he cost his team way too much. Sure, he might be a good leader, might be a good motivator. He's a pretty good defensive coach, but at the end of the day, if you can't manage the game clock and you have had as many blunders as he had in the National Football League, you're going to lose your job. There's
no doubt.
No way around it.
I mean, to fire him after one season with a rookie quarterback is kind of wild to me. But this Chargers team it's got some talent, man. You got Keenan Allen, Derwin James, Joey Bosa, and Austin Eckler. Not to mention Justin Herbert's growing. Man, he probably deserves Rookie of the Year. They may give it to Justin Jefferson, but we'll see. But man,
that's part of it. See, I think that's the reason why they pulled the trigger on him is because they have such a potential to have a franchise quarterback and someone that's immensely talented like Justin Herbert. I feel like they're going to want to get a young offensive mind in there to be able to develop him. That's just kind of the shift in the National Football League, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see that type of hire out of the Chargers.
For sure. We'll see. I know there is talks of Brian Daboll, the Bills offensive coordinator, going, and we'll see.
Eric Bieniemy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator, is also another hot name being tossed around.
Okay. Yeah. Well, all I'm saying is Brian Daboll has done a tremendous job with Josh Allen.
Absolutely.
And helping him. And Justin Herbert has a not identical skill set to Josh Allen, but has a lot of the same characteristics. But it'd be cool to see how much more he progresses, because it's not like the AFC West is just crawling with elite defenses. I mean, you got the Chargers probably have the best defense, and you got the Chiefs and the Raiders.
The Broncos usually have a pretty decent defense.
Yeah, but usually they're so far behind that it really doesn't matter.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. So then we have Justin Jefferson breaking the rookie receiving yards record. I just think it's funny that the Eagles drafted Jalen Reagor, the pick before him. And when the Vikings got him, I knew it was an absolute steal. And to me, it was one of the best picks in the first round. Justin Jefferson's a freak. He was great at LSU, and I'm surprised this many teams let him slip as far as they did.
It's cool to see. The kid's a stud. He can play. We'll see once they get a really good quarterback in there, if they ever do, how much better he can do, because Kirk Cousins ain't it, bud.
No,
Did you get your Kirk Cousins sweater yet? Did it come in?
Look, I have never been a Kirk Cousins fan. I thought the Vikings were gonna make the playoffs. That was all. I was trying to defend that pick. Kirk Cousins is he's a very mediocre quarterback. I will agree with that. He's a good guy, mediocre quarterback. So, Zach, this is the moment I've been waiting for all episode. Let's make our playoff predictions. Let's go down the line. Let's start in the AFC. Let's get into the wild card round. First matchup, we have the Colts facing the Bills. So the Dolphins absolutely choked their game away against the Bills. They're now out of the playoffs. The Colts sneak in. It's crazy. We have a 10-6 team in the AFC that missed the playoffs. This is a hard conference to predict this year. There's so much talent. And really, you could make the argument for a lot of teams to run the table here. And I mean that when I say that there's just so much talent in the AFC. It could go so many different ways. So even when I did my picks, I went back and forth. I changed things a couple of times, but I feel pretty good about it.
Don't hate on Miami. Yes, they had a terrible game against
tremendous year.
But 10-6, they're going to be good. That defense is only going to get better. Tua's only going to get better. We'll see. They got a chance to be pretty good and contend with Buffalo next year.
B-Flow should be a coach of the year candidate.
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
100%. The only person, Sean McDermott has a good argument. I think
Mike Tomlin.
Tomlin has an argument. I think Riverboat Ron has a good argument, but
he does.
Adam Gase should win the Coach of the Year award. Let's be real. This is going to be a good game. Indianapolis had a really good year. They're 11-5. They were 4-1 in their last 5 games, with their only loss to Pittsburgh. You can smile about that.
Come back in the second half. It was a great game.
Buffalo is freaking on fire. They are in fuego. The spread in this game is 6.5. I bet the weather's going to be nasty. I just don't think that Phillip Rivers is ever going to be able to shake this mantra that he can't get it done in the playoffs. I'm going to take Buffalo. I just think that Josh Allen they are freaking hot as hell. We'll see.
Yeah. So the big difference maker for the Colts, I feel like the last 4 weeks when they've been on this little bit of a run, is Jonathan Taylor. They finally started letting him run the ball, carry the rock, giving him 20-plus touches a game. And we saw what happens. He literally ran for 253 yards last week. So he's a tremendous running back, and it's good that they finally let him tote the rock, because Phillip Rivers is old and impaired now. So you're going to have a strong running game to even have a chance. But the Bills are peaking at the right time. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL. I don't see how the Colts have a chance in this. I don't even think it's going to be close. I'll take the Bills convincingly. Next matchup, we have the Baltimore Ravens facing off against the Tennessee Titans. This is going to be a really good game. This is kind of a revenge game for the Ravens, because the Titans obviously upset them last year. Baltimore is peaking at the right time. Hear me out when I say this, Zach. They've won 5 games in a row. They're 11-5. Their defense has only allowed 10 points over the last 2 games. Their defense is one of the best in the NFL, and they've also managed to avoid the injury bug. And you know what makes a huge difference in the playoffs? Special teams. You know who the best special teams team in the league is? It's the Ravens. They have the best kicker in the league. That is such an advantage in the playoffs when you know for a fact you can kick a field goal 55 yards and drill it. And then you have the Titans, who are the worst special teams team in the league, with Gostkowski, who is a very shaky kicker in the playoffs. The question is whether or not the Ravens are going to be able to stop Derrick Henry and the Titans' high-scoring offense. I think that they can do enough, because the Ravens have a much better defense than the Titans overall. I know Derrick Henry rushed for over 2,000 yards, and it's very hard to stop in the playoffs, but I don't see John Harbaugh and the boys getting beat by the Titans in back-to-back years in the playoffs. I'm going to take Baltimore.
Yeah, you're right. Baltimore has won 5 in a row. Let me name off these quality opponents that they've beaten. They beat Cincinnati, the Giants, Jacksonville, Cleveland, and Dallas. So 4 out of those 5 teams didn't make the playoffs. Cleveland got in because the good Lord decided we were going to have a bunch of teams in this year. I ain't sold on Baltimore. Lamar Jackson has had this, obviously he was the MVP last year, but he's had some rough goes in the playoffs. And, Tennessee's defense has struggled this year, but I think that Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown are going to have enough offensive firepower to take a little pressure off that defense. And I think they're going to make Lamar Jackson have to throw the ball to beat them. Not sold that he can do it. I'm going to take Tennessee. I think that Tannehill is going to get the better of Jackson again this time.
Okay. So, next game, we have the Cleveland Browns facing off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. These two just played each other in Week 17. Here's the thing. Look, am I happy for Cleveland fans that they finally get to see their team in the playoffs? Yes. But do I really think that they have a chance? And I know I could be considered biased for saying this, at beating the Steelers? Absolutely not. The Steelers just lost 22-24. They nearly scraped out a win with Mason Rudolph as the quarterback. Marquise Pouncey, Pittsburgh center, did not play. TJ Watt, best pass rusher, didn't play. Eric Ebron, starting tight end, didn't play. Pittsburgh literally rested half their team and still just about won this game. Cleveland had to pull out everything in order to win this. I think that they're just going to be happy that they made it in, and it's a good step in the right direction for their franchise, but when Pittsburgh played Cleveland at full strength earlier in the season, they won 38-3. I'll take the Steelers here. I don't think it's going to be close.
Well, they did play them tough, obviously.
With Mason Rudolph, who everyone was saying is a bust and a terrible quarterback. Just want to throw that out.
They're backups. I am a firm believer in motivation. I'm a firm believer of momentum. And you're going to call me crazy, but I'm going to do it. I think the Cleveland Browns will win this game.
What happened the last time you picked the Browns to win a game?
Oh, I'm sure they won. No, I'm just going out on a whim here. I think that Roethlisberger, he's going to throw 2 or 3 interceptions and have a bad game. And I don't know, something's just telling me that the Steelers are just not taking them seriously right now, which I think is a fatal mistake. I think Cleveland is obviously a lesser talented team than Pittsburgh, but something's just telling me the Browns are going to play them tough. I'm going to take Cleveland.
Okay. I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe I'm jinxing my own team right now by picking Pittsburgh, but look, it was 22-24 with our backups. You're right, though, about if the Steelers come in and underestimate them completely and play down to their competition, which they have a tendency to do, then sure, it could happen. But I think Big Ben will be fine. I know he hasn't really looked that great the last couple of weeks, but what people don't realize is it's not Big Ben. It's not his play. It's on the offensive coordinator, Randy Fichtner. Let me tell you why, Zach, because in the Colts game in the second half, the reason why the Steelers were able to come back and Ben was able to throw all those touchdowns was because he started calling the plays. In multiple games this year, when the offense has just fizzled out, Ben Roethlisberger took over the play-calling duties, and the offense just skyrocketed. The only way the Steelers lose this game is if they let Randy Fichtner call the plays. Worst offensive coordinator in the league. He needs to be fired. And people don't realize just how much of a drain he is on the Steelers' offense. All he does is call short screen passes, doesn't know how to get the run game going, but if Ben calls his own plays, we'll be completely fine. Okay. But you didn't know about that.
No, Dalton went on a little soapbox there. I didn't realize that he was the worst offensive coordinator in the National Football League. Okay, well, we'll see. I'm telling you, something tells me that Cleveland's going to play a hell of a game. We'll see. They'll probably lose by 30, but let's go.
Okay. So let's move into, we're going to go all the way through the AFC, and then we'll get into our NFC picks. Let's move into the divisional round. So in my bracket, I would have the Ravens facing off against the Buffalo Bills. This is going to be a tremendous game if it happens. I feel like it will. But here's the thing with the Bills. I know they're peaking at the right time. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Can't deny that. Can't question that. Their jitters are going to get the best of them here. Baltimore is a more seasoned team. And like I keep trying to tell everyone, special teams in the playoffs matters. And I know Lamar Jackson has struggled in the playoffs. I think this is the year that he actually overcomes this. The Ravens defense is scary, and they're still one of the healthiest teams in the NFL, which is going to help them big time. Most of these teams are pretty banged up, but the Ravens are fully healthy. They're going to be well coached. They're going to want to come back from how they fizzled out last year. They have the best kicker in the league, best special teams in the league, and the Bills have a young quarterback. While he might be all talented in their offense and their team might look like they're unstoppable, they're not going to go on a deep run. Baltimore upsets them.
Gosh, oh goodness, the AFC North bias is just steaming.
I hate the Ravens. I'm just trying to evaluate this from how I see it and just from my superior football knowledge, Zach.
Superior football knowledge.
And this could come back and bite me in the ass too. I've been known to make some hot takes that flake out, but I'll take my chances.
Well, I hear you. We'll see. All right, so it's because I picked Cleveland. That would put them facing the Chiefs, and that would face the Bills off against the Titans. Really tough game. Both of these teams have extraordinarily talented players at their skill positions with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen and obviously A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry on the other side. Man, this is the one that gives me the most trouble. I am going to ride the hot hand, and I'm going to take the Bills. I think that Titans defense just is not going to be able to hold down Josh Allen. The one wild card I'll say in here is the weather could be very probably will be nasty in Buffalo. So Josh Allen may have to deal with that. You always want to run the ball more when it's nasty, but we'll see. I just feel like that it's the Bills' game to lose. I'm going to take Buffalo to beat the Titans in the second round.
Okay. And my last pick in the AFC divisionals, I have my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs. The only way I see the Steelers reaching the AFC North is if they can somehow avoid playing Kansas City. But in my current bracket, I have to evaluate it for what it is and for the teams that I think it's going to win. And if the Steelers have to face off against the Chiefs, don't think they have a shot to win this game. I am putting my bias aside. I would, in this scenario, pick Kansas City to beat Pittsburgh because their offense is prolific. I know Pittsburgh might do enough to contain them a little bit, but I'm worried about the offense and them not being able to run the ball. That's where I think Kansas City has the huge edge over Pittsburgh is an offense. I mean, Pittsburgh obviously has an elite defense, and they were going to need to play their absolute best game to have a chance at winning this. But logically, talent-wise, and just well-roundedness, I'll take Kansas City to win this game.
Yeah, so I've got Chiefs and Browns in my game, and building off what you just said, I think the way to beat the Chiefs is to have like a Titans-esque game plan of controlling the clock, running the ball down the throat, and just dominating the time of possession. And I just don't think that Pittsburgh can do that. And because I've got the Browns in that game, I don't think that, I mean, obviously Nick Chubb and Hunt are very talented running backs, but I just don't know if they can do it either. We'll see. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to win this game pretty easily over the Browns. I just think Patrick Mahomes is too good. They're on another level. The only way that you can stop them is to take the ball literally out of their hands, and I just don't think the Browns/Steelers can do that. So Chiefs are going to make my AFC title game.
Okay. In the AFC Championship, for my bracket, I have the Ravens facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the thing. It is very hard to repeat in the National Football League and go to back-to-back Super Bowls. The Chiefs, the last couple of weeks, have looked very vulnerable. Miami played them tough. And what does Miami have? A great defense. You know who has a better defense, Zach? Baltimore. Baltimore has one of the best defenses in the league, and they also have a two-headed, you could say even three-headed monster at running back with Dobbins, Ingram, and Gus Edwards. Plus, you have Lamar Jackson running the ball. The Ravens are the perfect solution to counter the Kansas City Chiefs. Great on special teams, will control time of possession, and as long as they ground and pound the ball and keep Mahomes off the field, which I think they can do with their offense, I think this is a mismatch for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I honestly think that this is the only team that the Chiefs can lose to in the AFC, and I am going to take Baltimore to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I'm standing by my preseason pick. I think they're peaking at the right time. I think this is the year Lamar Jackson puts all of his playoff woes aside. They look unstoppable right now.
Hot take, hot take, hot take. Again, I think we established that they just look unstoppable against all these teams that didn't make the playoffs. But yeah, Baltimore looks good. My AFC championship would be Kansas City hosting Buffalo. And I love Josh Allen. I love the Bills team. They got a really good defense, but they don't fit the mold to beat Mahomes. They don't have the running game to do that. I just don't see them winning a shootout and outscoring Kansas City. I'm going to take the Chiefs to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl again.
Do you see how, if hypothetically Baltimore made it to the AFC Championship, that they could be a mismatch for Kansas City? If you look at the X's and O's, with how great they are at running the ball and how great their defense is, and also having elite special teams, which Kansas City does as well, with Harrison Butker as their kicker. But you're talking about Justin Tucker, the best kicker in the NFL. That's a huge advantage. How do you think they won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco? A lot of it had to do with the legacy. Yeah, I think the same recipe can work here, and if Baltimore makes it, which I think they will, I think that they have a great shot at taking out the Chiefs.
I get that, and yes, they run the ball well. They have an elite defense. They have really good special teams. I just don't trust that Lamar Jackson can do it. Yep. That's my biggest flaw with him. I think that he has the talent, obviously, but he just has not proven to me yet that he can.
And that's the biggest gamble with the Ravens is how is Lamar Jackson going to play? Even
last year, even in his MVP season, man, he looked terrible against Tennessee last year. We'll see. I disagree, but we'll see.
So let's move into our NFC predictions. Let's start out with the wild card round with the Rams versus the Seahawks. This one, to me, seems like it's almost too easy to pick because Los Angeles really hasn't looked good the last couple of weeks. Jared Goff looks very off. I am honestly not even sure that I'm sold on him as a franchise quarterback anymore. I think he's more of a system guy. The Rams struggle to run the ball as well, and their offense is just kind of fluttered a little bit. And here's the thing about Seattle. Their defense has really turned the corner. They're not as elite or the Legion of Boom that they used to be, but they've really been playing a lot better the last couple of games, and I think that's going to help them significantly. If the Seahawks even have a mediocre defense, they're one of the most dangerous teams in the NFC. I'll take Seattle to win it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, but Seattle has really been winning with their defense the last few games. They gave up 23 points to the Kyle Shanahan-led 49ers, but before that, they had only given up 24, 36, 39 points in 4 games, so that's less than 10 points a game. I think it's the offense of Seattle that really needs to go and get rolling for them to have success, but I think it will. I'm going to take Seattle. I like what you said about Sean McVay and Jared Goff. Are just kind of we're good. We don't. I just think that Seattle's the better team, more talent offensively. I think they're going to win.
Yeah, the Rams they just seem very inconsistent. You don't know which team's going to show up. That's really
sure. Seattle does too, but I just feel like Los Angeles is more inconsistent.
Yeah, I'll put my money on Russell Wilson, especially in the playoffs.
Agreed.
Next matchup, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Washington football team. The real question in this game is whether or not Alex Smith will be able to play. Because if he can't play, Washington has zero shot at winning this game. I thought about taking Washington here, but then I asked myself if I really think they're going to be able to hang. I know that they have a prolific pass rush with Chase Young and the boys. I just don't think that their offense can hang with Tampa Bay and all their weapons. I was wrong about the Antonio Brown move, Zach. I got to admit it. He looks really good, and he looks almost back to his elite form the last couple of games. And if his head's screwed on straight, I mean, he's a talented guy. And I think the Buccaneers, their offense is starting to figure it out. They still have a really good rushing defense, which will help them, hopefully mitigate Antonio Gibson. Tom Brady looks great. It's hard to believe the guy's thrown, I think it's like 40 touchdowns this year at age 43. Yeah. He's an absolute legend, and he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I really don't think that's even debatable anymore. I'll take the Bucs to win this.
Man, an 8-point favorite on the road in the postseason is it's an anomaly. You don't hear that. I think Washington and Riverboat Ron has done an incredible job. They've obviously released Dwayne Haskins here in the past week and putting all their eggs in the Alex Smith basket. I think that they will take a quarterback in the draft next year, and I think they're on the up and up. But I just think that Tampa's got too much weapons. I think Tom Brady, Jones, Godwin, you name it, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, it's tough to cover all these guys. And while I think that Washington defense can hang with them, I just don't think their offense is going to be able to put up enough points. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay.
Completely agree. Next pick, we have the bad news Bears of offense facing off against the New Orleans Saints. The Bears are lucky to be in the playoffs, but sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. They squeak in because Arizona lost. But hey, you take it. They're coming into the 7th seed. I just don't see how they even have a chance in this game to hang with the Saints. The Saints are rolling right now. Their defense might be the best in the NFC. Zach, I want to paint a picture for you. Peyton Manning comes out. We know he's going to retire. It's his last season. It's the National Football League. There's always storybook endings for guys that have dedicated their career to it. Their team's going to be extra motivated. This is Drew Brees last year. It's just announced that he is going to retire after this year and join NBC, it looks like. Saints are going to be motivated. No way they lose this game. I'll take them to win.
I think you're far underestimating Chicago's defense here. I think that Khalil Mack and these guys could get after Brees. We've seen it in the past few weeks. He's had some trouble. They obviously put the hammer on Carolina and Minnesota, but we'll see. I think you're right. I think that they've got enough, but I think this is going to be a closer game than you think. I think Trubisky has played okay the last few weeks, and the defense has played fine, but just okay is not going to beat the Saints. I'm going to take New Orleans.
Okay. So let's move into our divisional matchups. I have, for the first game, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers facing off against the Green Bay Packers. This, to me, is a very interesting matchup. I've gone back and forth on this pick, and the thing that I'm questioning is Green Bay going to have a fizzle-out performance like they did last year? Everyone was told that they were Super Bowl contenders, and they lost in the first round. And it's basically an identical team. I don't really see a difference from Packers from last year to this year. So they're facing off against the Buccaneers, who at times can be flawed and have been inconsistent, but they definitely got hot at the right time. The Packers, this is going to be a shootout, and it's going to come down to a battle of Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. Rodgers is still a little bit younger. I'm going to lean on his edge, and he's had a tremendous year, and he should easily be in the MVP considerations for the season. I'll take the Packers to win it, but I'm not confident in this pick. I think this is a toss-up game.
Yeah, so obviously big news with the Packers losing their big-time tackle, David Bakhtiari. May have butchered it, but he's an all-pro tackle. It's really going to hurt him. But you're right, Aaron Rodgers has just had a tremendous year. He did not set the all-time quarterback rating for a season, but I think he just finished below his from a few years ago. So, I mean, dude is just a boss, man. I went back and forth on this one. I think that Brady has all the weapons in the world, and I kind of was thinking that same storybook deal that you were talking about with Brees with Brady, but the Packers have shown me no indication that they're going to let this one slip away. I'm going to take Green Bay. I just think that Aaron Rodgers is, he's just out for blood. Give me Green Bay.
So we have completely agreed on every single pick so far in the NFC.
In the NFC.
AFC, completely different. So it'll be interesting.
I feel like it's about to change, though.
Okay. Next game, we have the Seattle Seahawks facing off against the New Orleans Saints. Much to the Picasso image I've been trying to portray in your head, Zach, I'm going to keep rambling on about it. Brees going into his last year with one of the most complete teams in the National Football League. They have the best running back in the NFC with Alvin Kamara. They have weapons all over the place with Michael Thomas, Taysom Hill, you name it. I think their defense is also a lot better than Seattle's, even though Seattle's playing better. But I'll give Seattle the edge at quarterback with Russell Wilson and at wide receiver. I just don't know that Seattle's defense can do enough to keep them in this game. I think that the Saints defense is going to carry them, and Drew Brees has an all-time performance type of game. The Saints get close every single year, and I think this is finally the year that they get over the hump. I'll take them to beat the Seahawks here.
As the great Lee Corso likes to say, good pick. Not so fast, my friend. No, not feeling it. Drew Brees has had quite the career. I just don't think he's got it. And I think that Russ and these guys will really get rolling. I'm going to take Seattle. I think DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are sick and tired of not having good games, and they're about to really roll, and Chris Carson in there too. And, man, I'm going to take Seattle. I think they're going to beat the Saints.
Okay. So for my NFC Championship, I have the Saints facing off against the Packers. I'm still not entirely sold on the Packers. I know Aaron Rodgers has had a great year, but here's the thing with the Packers, Zach. Once they get behind, they typically do not have the ability to come back. That's been Aaron Rodgers' fatal flaw as a quarterback. He's not good at playing from behind. I forget the stat that's out there, but I know he has like less than a 500 record when they're trailing by more than 10 points in a game. So Aaron Rodgers, he had that one great run over my Steelers, but he doesn't have ice in his veins like the all-time great Drew Brees. I think that the Saints have a better defense than the Packers. Running games, it's a toss-up. Jones and Kamara are both good running backs. Adams and Thomas are both good receivers. But like I said, this is one of those years, and as Picasso would say, a guy that's had such an illustrious career like Drew Brees, there's no way that they get knocked out in the NFC Championship. His team's going to rally behind him. Sean Payton going to pull out all the stops. They've been one of the hottest teams in the NFL all year. They've been one of the most consistent teams. I'll take the Saints.
Yeah, so I know you gave out that stat about Aaron Rodgers has a below 500 record. Another good stat along those lines is, did you know that Tom Brady, he's never won a game when the other team has scored more points than them? That might be the best stat that you've ever given me. Oh my gosh, he's got a losing record.
I'm just saying Rodgers doesn't have the ability to come from behind, and he just doesn't have the clutch gene. That's the argument I'm trying to make.
Okay, well, I don't know that Drew Brees has the clutch gene, if you want to really be honest with you. Obviously, two legendary quarterbacks that will both be enshrined in Canton here in a few years. But because I have Seattle and Green Bay in mind, I'm still going to take the Packers. And for everything that you just said about Drew Brees, I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. He's a monster. Sure, he may not have the clutch gene like you think, but something just tells me the Packers, this is their year. Obviously, I'm high on Seattle for having them all the way in the NFC Championship game. They've got a ton of talent with that wide receiver duo, but I just think that Green Bay, they've just been far more consistent. I just think it's Aaron Rodgers' year. I think they're going to the Super Bowl. Give me the Packers.
Okay. In Super Bowl 55, I have the Baltimore Ravens facing off against the New Orleans Saints. You might be looking at my playoff bracket thinking, Dalton, what the hell are you thinking? That's okay. Let the haters hate. This is going to be Super Bowl 55. I feel confident about it. Seems like two unlikely teams, but it's the National Football League. Just when you think you can predict it, you can't. No one can predict it. In my Super Bowl, I am going to take the New Orleans Saints. As I have been saying for a while, this is going to be a storybook ending for Drew Brees. He's going to retire after this year, and there's no way he's going to retire without having two Super Bowl rings. Just don't see it happen. It's the exact same thing that happened with Peyton Manning before he retired to get his second ring. I don't see how there's any other scenario. I think the Super Bowl will be close. Baltimore definitely has a great team. Lamar Jackson, at this point, would have carried his team quite far. I can keep talking about Justin Tucker being the best kicker in the NFL. He might be the best kicker of all time, but I just don't see how.
Whoa.
Look at his numbers. I think by the time he retires, you might be able to make the argument about it.
Well, Adam Vinatieri was pretty good once upon a time, too.
Vinatieri's good. He's definitely up there. He's in the Mount Rushmore of kickers. But we're talking about Justin Tucker. And trust me, this is the most unbiased take I could possibly make because I hate the Baltimore Ravens. But I think they're going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. So in this matchup, we're going to have two great rushing teams. But the Saints are going to have the edge in quarterback here with Drew Brees and also give them the edge overall on offense. But the Saints defense can match up well with Baltimore. I think people are discounting the fact that the Saints have the best defense in the NFC. They have the best secondary, and they're really good at stopping the run. And they've also been, besides maybe the Packers, the most consistent team in the NFC. I don't see a flaw that they have. I think they're the most well-rounded team in the National Football League, and I'm going to take them to win Super Bowl 55.
Dalton's one of those guys who's got just an AFC North posters back there on his wall.
I hate the Ravens. I hate the Browns, too. You know that.
Well, I understand what you're saying with your Super Bowl pick. My Super Bowl happens to be the 1 seed versus 1 seed, Kansas City, Green Bay. I just think this is a quarterback-driven league, and I think that you've got Patrick Mahomes, who is well on his way to being easily one of the best of ever. And who knows, we may be talking about him as the GOAT one day. Against the guy right now, I mean, my God, Aaron Rodgers threw for, I believe, 42 touchdowns and 2 interceptions this year. I mean, that's silly. That's silly. He has got way less weapons than Patrick Mahomes has. Obviously, he's got Jones and he's got Devontae Adams and stuff. But, 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions is what it says here. I'm going to take the Chiefs only because I don't think that the Packers can. I just feel like that the Chiefs are going to get one more stop. I think that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have had this inability. Obviously, they're 15-1, but they've had a lot of games where they jump up and then then these teams fight back and claw and may only lose by a touchdown or so. Happened against the Dolphins, happened against other teams. I think that they need to learn to step on the throats, but I just think they're far and away too talented. As good as the season that Aaron Rodgers has had, I'm going to take the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl 2 in a row.
So here's my biggest problem with the Chiefs, and where I think they're the most vulnerable, is they lost Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they have not been able to rush the ball. Le'Veon Bell, pretty washed up at this point, so it's going to all fall onto Patrick Mahomes, which we know is possible, but I think that that's a flaw teams can expose. Now, they obviously have the talent. They can easily repeat as Super Bowl champions. They should be the favorite, but that's my only concern with them. My concern with Aaron Rodgers is, I mean, how many times has this guy lost in the first round? How many times do people praise him before going into the playoffs, and then he just absolutely chokes away? That's it. Call me a Rodgers hater, but I just don't trust him.
I get it, and that's fair, but he's done as much work in the playoffs as Roethlisberger has. He won one Super Bowl. He obviously has one less ring than what Roethlisberger has, but Big Ben had some pretty damn good teams. That one he was a part of that second year, he didn't win that Super Bowl. He was just handing that ball off and
1-2, bend to 3.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Agree to disagree. I'm just going to take Aaron Rodgers and them to win the NFC. I just think the Chiefs are too good.
Where do you see a flaw with the New Orleans Saints? I just don't see one. I think they're the most well-rounded team in the NFL.
They are very well-rounded. They 100% well-rounded. To me, they are very similar to the Baltimore Ravens in that the defense is there. They have a good running game. They have some good skill players. I just don't know if the quarterback can do it. Breeze has lost a lot of juice in that arm, man. They're doing 15, 20-yard passes, 10, 15-yard passes. They're not throwing the ball downfield. If Drew Brees and Lamar Jackson both have really good playoff runs, then yes, I could sincerely see your bracket doing well and probably being right. But I just don't have that much faith in both of them to do it.
It's definitely a gamble, and it's definitely a lot on Jackson and Breeze. You're right about that.
It makes total sense, absolutely, but I just don't have the faith in the quarterbacks.
It's fair. Completely fair. Well, guys, if you like our show, you could support us on Patreon. The link is patreon.com/callingmyshots. I was told by a listener that if the Browns beat the Steelers in the playoffs, that I have to change the Patreon page to the Browns logo. I will do that. As much as it will pay me, I will do that if the Browns beat the Steelers. But if you guys enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @CallOurShots. We're going to be switching into some NHL coverage here pretty soon. We'll always be releasing weekly episodes, and we have some other things in the works. So,
yeah, it's fun. You know, we love it. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, send a carrier pigeon, smoke signal, whatever you need to do. Tell us what you think. Tell us what we can do better. Also, one side note, Dalton, I just saw, I want to congratulate Devontae Smith on winning the Heisman Trophy tonight. Very well deserved.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, Zach, but how long has it been since a non-quarterback has won the Heisman? Seems like forever.
Oh, non-quarterback, it would have been, Derrick Henry won the Heisman.
Oh, that's right.
I thought you were going to say when was the last time a non-running back / quarterback.
Oh, yeah, it's been since Desmond Howard for a wide receiver. That's crazy.
For a non-quarterback running back, it would have been Charles Woodson in 97, but he was he was a defensive and punt returner. And also they robbed him of Peyton Manning. But whatever, we'll go into that one day. Anyways.
Do you think Devontae Smith deserved it?
For sure. I think that, man, he was just good. It was hard because Alabama has just such riches that, man, when you got 2 Heisman finalists up there, that's incredible. I think Mac Jones had a hell of a year. I think Devontae Smith was more to that offense than Mac Jones was. I think that you could have put multiple players in there and they'd have had that success that Mac Jones had. I think if you take the multiple wide receivers and put them in there to Devontae Smith's shoes, I don't know if they had that much success, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. Like, who I would have voted for probably still would be Kyle Trask, the regular season. I know he had one bad bowl game, but I'm not going to hold that against him too much with backup wide receivers in the game. But it's hard to argue against what Devontae Smith did. He obviously dominated the game, and he is the crucial point for Alabama's offense.
Calling it right now. Matt Corral will be a Heisman finalist next year.
It's a hot take.
You look at his QBR, go back and look at his games, every one of them. He had 7 games in the 90s. He had 1 game in the 80s, and he had 2 that were terrible. Seriously. I mean, you have a QBR 3rd in the country, and you have 14 interceptions. You've done a lot of good. So we'll see. if he gets better, man, the sky's the limit for the kid. He's got a hell of a cannon, and he can move, and we'll see.
Ole Miss has to win 8 or 9 games for him to be a finalist, though.
Sure, and honestly, non-biased as I can be here, if they have an average SEC defense next year, that offense will be elite. They set a record for most yards in SEC history, yards per game this year. They broke LSU's record last year, and that should tell you how good they were. They're going to score points. They just got to be able to stop people, so we'll see.
Well, South Carolina might win 2 games if we're lucky. So going in with the number 100 recruiting class, it's going to be a rough year. And Ryan Helinski transferred. Just not a good time to be a Gamecocks fan.
Just relax. Hey, I know where you were. I was there 3 years ago. Just relax. It's going to be better. All right, guys. Well, this has been fun. Hope y'all had a good and safe holiday. This has been Calling
My Shots.
Shots.